evening, everybody, and welcome to the Personnel Board's meeting of Wednesday, November 13th, 2024. We're meeting here at the 55 Church Street location, and we're on video. We'll do I'm calling the meeting to order, and we'll do a roll call because Liz will not be with us tonight. So Kate Ryan,
Yes, here.
Joey Murray,
Here.
Josh Fay,
Here.
and Bill Marachek. So we have a duly constituted board. First item is going to be the approval of minutes. We have, where is it, June 12th?
Yes, I sent those out at like 3:30 today. I did print some paper ones. Did my best to kind of piece together in the absence of a video, using the agenda notes. I think it pretty much captures where we were at for that meeting, but definitely if anybody sees anything glaring like they weren't actually at that meeting, let me know and we'll fix that, but.
Well, thank you for putting this together. We should just probably initially, do we feel like we're able to read and comment and approve, or would you rather wait till the next meeting? Any thoughts on that?
I haven't read them, but they're brief.
Well, you keep reading. We have Kimberly from Kaya.
Good
Can
evening.
you, there, hi, I was just curious here. It's what, 79 or 80 down?
I'm sorry to say it's gorgeous here.
Tell us this morning a cold front is coming in though. It's gonna be what, 69? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, if I'll entertain a motion to approve, if,
I'll move to approve the minutes of June 12th, 2024.
okay. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, so all in favor, Josh,
Yes.
Joe Emmerich,
Yes.
Kate Ryan?
Yes.
And Bill Marachek, yes. All right, thank you again, Jess, for putting this together. And now we have October 9th, 2024.
Those are mine and they're not ready yet, so,
Okay.
so that I will have
Well-
them for next time, I promise.
We'll come tomorrow night and get it. So we'll be ready for the next.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, we're gonna go to the Assistant Town Manager, Interim Human Resources Director's Report.
Yes, so the big item that's listed there, I'll do last, because that's actually gonna be getting turned over to Kimberly. That's about our draft evaluation and goal setting forms. We've made some good progress there. But I'm first just gonna breeze through a couple things. You have the report in your packet that we typically provide each month with the headcount, hires and terms, not a significant amount of change there. Things have actually been a really good place. We have a couple of recruitments going on right now, but things have definitely calmed down in terms of some of the hiring frenzy we had been going through, which is great. We've really got a good team built here and things seem to be going swimmingly with that. We do have coming up, I believe I sent to Bill and Liz the email about the annual town report. I believe last year there was a report that was done for the personnel board, and then there was also a report done for human resources. I didn't know if it made sense to entertain possibly doing one big report for human resources that has a section on personnel board, or if it was this board's preference to still keep two separate reports. We have some time to figure that out, but I did wanna just put that on everybody's radar. We have, I think, until January 10th to get those in, but that'll be there before we know it, so to try to start working on that earlier.
So
if possible.
just to recap, in the past, it's always been a separate personnel board? Is that
Last
the
year
history?
it was definitely a separate report. I don't know if that's always been the history. I'm guessing it has been, but I mean, it seems kind of duplicative. Like I know like with recreation, for example, they just do kind of one report for the Recreation Commission that encompasses kind of everything versus having two separate reports, but It's really a matter of preference. I mean, there's certainly plenty we can spread out to make two comprehensive reports, both with the work HR as a department is doing, and then of course all the work that the board's doing. It would just be helpful to have a little bit of guidance so we can get going on getting some drafts over to review.
So there is no guidance or recommendation as it comes from the select board as to what their expectation is.
No, not that I've received it anyway.
Okay.
Wow. I'm just looking at it. That's it, yeah.
It might be appropriate just to sort of see right now, I mean, January's not that far away necessarily, but any feelings about what you'd like to do? Would you like to have, do you think it's best to have it combined? Or do you think there should be a separate personnel board?
I personally think it should be combined. I mean, there's a lot of overlap between what we, you know, the guidance we provide and what they do. So I think I support that, but I'm happy to.
And the past practice has been separate reports?
I think it's always been two separate reports, at least last year definitely was.
Sorry for my ignorance on this, but what is it, what's contained in the report? Like, what is
Just like the year's activities at a glance. Everybody kind of writes about their respective departments, board reports, you know, accomplishments, and gets put into a nice little book and it goes on the website and maybe 10 people read it and others use it as a resource if they need to look something up, but it's something we're obligated to do, so.
Yeah.
It's required by state
We
law.
have had a lot of accomplishments, so it could be a book.
It could, we've had a busy year here, so.
I have no reason not to follow Kate's thoughts.
Nor do I.
John, okay,
I don't either.
okay. So we'll combine.
All right, sounds good. So what I can do is I'll get working on it and I'll definitely make sure that there's clear, you know, section about personnel board things and I'll at least get some items put in there and then I can
Okay,
work with you and Liz,
Yeah,
or
no,
if
no.
the whole board wants to be involved, we can do that, but I just wanted to get that kind of ball rolling, cause
Okay,
I
I
know the
think-
10th will just sneak up on us.
right.
It seems
No,
so
I-
far away now,
I
but
think if, I think Liz and myself can sort of represent the board here, and there's no need to go down to another level of detail, so. And I think, Jess, you should just encourage you to, if there are specific points that you think either Liz or I have some insight into, then, but yes, we will be reviewing the drafts that are put together.
good, excellent. So that was pretty much, my updates for now. I do want to then turn it over to Kimberly, who's going to give an update on where we're at with the new evaluation and goal setting process and forms. As you know, this was part of the new fiscal 2025 compensation plan that we're going to have a refresh of our evaluation forms, complete with goals, and that merit pay would be or merit increases would be based on those goals, performance, et cetera. So, Kimberly, why don't you take it away with your update and hopefully we can get some good feedback and input from the board.
Thank you, Jess. I appreciate being with you this evening and to share with you, as Jess mentioned, as part of our merit pay initiative, we have been working to devise updated forms for evaluations. Our non-union or non-bargaining employees have not been consistently receiving evaluations since the pandemic. And so this is a great time for us to dust those off, look at what's available in the marketplace and devise a new improved form that allows us to give feedback to our employees, meaningful feedback based on their performance, and allows us to do goal setting initiative for each and every employee that is covered under the merit pay initiative that's overseen by the board. And so what I have before you this evening are two evaluation forms for employees. They're divided per the classification and compensation study, separated senior managers and the leadership team grades 15 through 18, and a separate form for grades 1 through 14. You'll note on the forms, they begin obviously with some obvious inputs. But I wanted to draw your attention to the paragraph below, name, employment date, et cetera. This is the new Town of Concord value statement that directs the behavior and the actions of our employees. And that is highlighted on these forms. And many of the categories relate back to the attitudes, behaviors, and actions that we want to see in Concord employees. I'll also draw your attention under the overall rating. If you'll recall, based on the new plan, the step plan, the step increase, that predictable increase that employees are able to see each year, is really a pass-fail increase. So if you are a quality performer, you receive the step increase. If you're not yet a quality performer, you do not receive the step increase. But what we've done is for the quality performance rating, we've divided that into 3 sections. The first being a top performer who consistently exceeds expectations in their current role. They achieve notable activities within the year. And then the second is a solid performer who consistently meets and occasionally exceeds. And then the third is a satisfactory or emerging performer with areas of development. This may be somebody who's newer in their role, or newly promoted, or someone who hasn't yet quite got their full legs under them. And what we're attempting to do with the stratification of our quality performance is to use those evaluations for succession planning, so that folks who have mastered the role that they're in, there may be opportunities for them to stretch and grow beyond their current position. And so I wanted to draw your attention to that section for succession planning. And then anyone, of course, who's not yet a quality performer, who's below expectations performer, we are implementing a performance improvement plan for those employees so that we can help them get to a quality performance. Then moving through the performance criteria, I won't go through those this evening, but I think you'll recognize them for both levels of employees. And really, we wanted to bring this before the board because there's such a wealth of knowledge that you all have that we'd love to tap into and get your feedback and your input. We are at the same time, we've reached out to you getting feedback and input from the senior leadership team as well. And look forward to finalizing these in the coming weeks as part of this project. Why don't I take a breath there and see if there are any questions?
Kimberly, when is your goal to have this completed? What's the date do you have?
We would like to conduct training using these forms the first week of December. So
Okay.
we are under a compressed timeline, as you know, getting ready for the January 1st kickoff to be prepped and ready, so that beginning January 1st, everyone has their goals in place and is ready for the remaining 6 months of FY25.
Kimberly, question, you mentioned that early before COVID and post-COVID, as we all know the world now, but pre-COVID, that there was a process in place for performance conversations. Are these forms the same as the ones that have been in place in the past, or is it a new process and kind of new form that you're rolling out now? These
are new forms. Though the grades 1 through 14 forms do have some similarities, so they're not completely foreign to folks, but we have brought in some additional or adjusted categories, I should say, that match with our new value statement and the new path forward on goal achievement.
So the people, the town employees would be comfortable seeing kind of the quality performance, 1, 2, 3 ratings and not yet a quality performance with the 4, or is that a new rating scale as well?
The MPs, which were the managers and above, had that type of quality performance rating before. I'm not exactly sure how it was used, based on the information that I have. So that will not be new for managers, and above, but it will be somewhat new for other employees.
I have a question. Will there be any, any positions who don't go through the goal setting? Like who, employees where their role is basically perform the job in the job description and there isn't a need to set specific goals for performance?
In order to receive merit pay in either a consistent performance meets expectations performance or a stretch performance, those are the 2 levels that we've instituted. There will be goals for every employee. Many of the goals, we've started, of course, with the senior leadership team, and the goals that we're setting right now are consistent with select board goals and town manager goals that have already been created. As we get more toward the entry-level line employees, it may be a little bit more challenging to connect them to select board goals or to town manager goals. But there will be goals, operational goals that we'll be able to utilize so that folks can participate in either a consistent performance or a stretch performance for merit pay.
For like folks that are limited status employees or that are paid on the miscellaneous comp schedule, like they aren't eligible for the merit pay, so
Right,
those people
yeah.
wouldn't get this type of form. You know, if you're 6 hours a week as a library page,
Sure, you don't need to set goals.
right?
Yeah.
Just get the book in the right spot. That's all.
Do the job is the goal. I guess.
Exactly.
I've seen that before where like it's sometimes an exercise in futility where you're setting goals that are, you know, you're only setting them because you're doing this process and not because your job actually requires any goal setting. You're supposed to do your job. And that can be frustrating, but I think depending on how it's approached, you know, great. There's always something you can come up with. I just am curious about that.
Yeah, there are certainly categories for every job, whether it be, you know, quantity of work, quality of work, customer satisfaction, timeliness, turnaround times. There will be plenty of opportunity, I think, for us to perform goal setting for all employees so they can fully participate.
So I had a question about the goals, and merit pay, and how are the goals, so each employee sets their 3 goals, and how are those gonna be measured? Is that, you set your goals annually, and at the end of the fiscal year, whenever you do your period, they'll evaluate just the goals separately from the evaluation because I see that the goals are separate from the actual evaluation, so I was just curious how those were evaluated.
Yeah, the idea is that that step increases are based on whether you're meeting expectations or not. And so they're kind of a pass-fail in this scenario, and that the merit pay goals are the goals that will be evaluated. Now, of course, we're in an unusual year this year because we're starting January 1st through June 30th. We're only evaluating on a half-year basis, but starting for FY26, we'll be evaluating on a full-year basis. And that's why the kickoff January 1st.
Kimberly, a couple questions for me. Do you, we're now at what, the 14th of November? And you're confident that you'll get whatever feedback you're going to be asking for the senior management team as to their thoughts about this form and to incorporate that into any revision before December 1st?
Yes, I am.
Was there any consideration that you thought about in terms of recognizing the the difference between a non-exempt employee and an exempt employee in this, in both sort of components, the actual form itself, the way, the format of that form versus, versus the merit piece, which is everybody has goals, so that's how I see it, but I just was curious whether there'd been any discussion around the table about, you know, was there any thought that perhaps the non-exempt employees, by the nature of their work, you know, maybe something different.
Thank you for bringing that up, Bill, because I would like to point out on the form for grades 1 through 14 that we did not separate it into non-exempt versus exempt necessarily. But there is a section on the junior form, the grades 1 through 14 form. There are extra categories for supervisors. So that if you supervise one or more employees, there are a number of additional evaluation comments to be checked off. And so that's the difference that we created was you're a non-supervisor and you have certain categories for evaluation. And if you're a supervisor, you have those plus supervisory categories. And the supervisory categories that we selected tend to exist on the senior form as well. They're just a subset of what senior managers are responsible for and evaluated on.
The nature of the merit, actually, I have to get two comments. One is that Liz and I met with the two new select board people, Cameron McKinnon and Wendy Tolliver. And they've expressed an interest on the part of the personnel board to be more involved with some of the organizational decisions. Now, obviously, this is their thoughts, and this has nothing to do with what Carrie before is at all even prepared or not, but at least these folks were really very interested in taking the expertise that's currently on the personnel board and being able to provide to the select board, to the town, some meaningful discussion and opportunity for the strategic component of how organizationally the town is structured, you know, whether departments and so forth. So it was very vague in terms of what, there were no specifics on the part, but it is something which Liz has talked about on occasion in terms of how the personnel board might be able to provide more sort of input into some of the strategic aspects of human resources. But I guess, where am I going with this? It's important, I think, that I mean, I've asked a couple of questions and, you know, you've responded great, I mean, perfectly. But I'm just wanting to capture, and I will in the minutes, since I'm doing minutes, sort of the additional points that these two select board members have contributed to sort of say, we appreciate that you're there and that, you know, we think you can do more in your role, provided that's consistent with the town manager's, you know, viewpoint about how the board can be perhaps used or being broader in terms of its orientation. The other point that these people that the select board made was, and this is not a discussion for tonight, but it's appropriate if I sort of take sort of the stage here, is they would like some input from the personnel board as to what date is used for purposes of the merit increase determination. Is it the current salary that somebody is in, or is it based on the new July 1st increases? So correct me if I'm wrong, Jess, but this year, and this has already been discussed, as you know, but the determination was made on the new salaries.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
Okay. And I don't think we're gonna have time tonight to go through that, but I think it would be of interest to me and to the board as to, there are two ways to do this. One is you take the existing compensation salaries that people are at, and then merit is based on that number as opposed to the new budgetary, new fiscal year numbers. And anyway, so I think we'll make a note in the minutes that this is a sort of a future discussion. Again, this was something that, if the personnel board chooses that, maybe this is a good thing to talk about, great. And if you, as a board, say, no, I don't think we necessarily need to do that, that's fine too. But at least you should be aware that this is something that a few members of the select board are interested in which is very nice to have somebody interested in your bid, right?
And that will come up, when we present for discussion, the classification and compensation plan and the pay philosophy, which is 10.2. So if you read 10.2 pay philosophy and salary administration, you'll see that, spelled out how we were doing it for fiscal 2025. But certainly that could be, changed if the board or others feel strongly that the merit should be calculated differently. That is a policy we can look at.
Well, and I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, Jess, I mean, we can, it's not our decision. What is our decision is to whether we want to talk about it and provide input
Right.
to the town manager. In terms of our belief on how this works the best for the employees and for the town citizens. Okay, the training, Kimberly, who is doing the training and how's this, what, at least the very top level, what are the thoughts about what this training is gonna include?
We have supervisory training that is tentatively scheduled for the first week of December. And it will include information that kind of brings current all that we've done with the salary plan from the compensation and classification study forward, with the changes that we've made each year, including this current change that we're making to institute merit pay based on goal setting. And so the training will include some training on goal setting, some training on how to conduct goal achievement conversations between January 1st and June 30, and on the new evaluation forms.
Okay, and you're doing this, I'm sorry, or
Yes,
who is?
Aaron and I will be conducting the training.
Okay, and you're gonna be able to get this all satisfied within a week, you think, or do you have a much more ambitious schedule than a week?
Well,
Like 2 days?
I think it will be 2 classrooms of about 25 people each. And we'll be able to do it within the week of December 2nd for sure.
Now, what are the plans, communication plans for the balance of the non-union employees? What's the thinking there?
We have some listening sessions with employees tentatively scheduled to be able to give out some information and receive some information prior to that training, so that we can adjust our training if necessary.
So I guess I'm gonna ask you to drill down just a little. So it's gonna be, I don't know what a listening session is. I think maybe that's my.
Maybe the term focus group, type of kind of a focus group setting. We did this last year, Bill, just prior to the rollout of the FY25 pay plan. I held 2 focus groups or listening sessions. We had I think it was something like 117 of our 179 employees attended one or the other of those sessions, either in person or via Zoom. So they were very well attended. It was 2/3 of our employees attended one or the other. I would expect the similar with these listening sessions or focus groups as well.
It does seem to me that that's a really important part of the whole equation here that the employees,
Technically has.
you would hope,
Oh, sorry. Yeah, just let them know we're at a meeting now. Yeah, just pop out and let them know we're at a meeting. that we're here.
you would hope that, there would be enough time, it sounds like you are, thinking about that and going to do it, but the employees need to feel like they're, they know what's going on.
Yep.
And especially in the sense that it's been how many months or years since the last, it's been a while since there's been a formal performance evaluation system of any kind. So it just seems like it's incumbent upon the town to really, if anything, go out of their way to try to make certain that the employees know what this is all about. Because in essence, their bosses have an opportunity to influence the form, but they will not, because they're going to be given a form, or they'll be shown a form that is going to be used for them.
Well, they will see the form before the training, so they will have an opportunity to weigh in.
Okay, so you're planning, that's an important, I think, connection that they do in fact feel, and there's some stated intent that if they have their own thoughts here, that they are encouraged to speak up and to come to Aaron or Jess to provide, their contribution here.
Yeah, our listening sessions will take place and they will be completed before the training happens. So that if there are adjustments that need to be made, they can be made prior to the training.
I've got one more question, but any. So I probably should know the answer to this, but in the merit increase, so it's intended that's what is the percent that we're talking about, the merit component overall that's been budgeted for by the town?
I'm going to defer that question to see if Jess or Carrie would like to take that one.
Yes, I don't know what the dollar amount is that's set aside. Carrie would
Well,
perhaps
Let-
have that
let me-
information, but it's the idea that they can receive 1, 2, or I believe 3%
Okay.
flat dollar
okay,
payment. So again, they're used to getting
right,
prior years, those merit increases that were just on base, a percentage on the base. So this does represent that shift, which we did this year. Fiscal 25 was the first year where they received a flat dollar merit bonus versus having it built into the base.
okay, well, I guess
Yeah.
I'm driving at. Sorry,
Bill, if I could just add, the plan is also designed that the merit that is available on an annual basis is subject to what is in the budget. So it may change from year to year to meet the town's ability to fund this.
because thank you, Carrie. The thing I'm trying to get at is that there's only one pot of money.
Right.
And that pot of money, you can determine based on what is the percentage from the payroll, what an average amount is. So an average though means that some people get less and some people can get more. So I guess the less is 1%. I don't know if 2% is the average or not, but 3% is more. How are you planning on determining who gets 1 and who gets 3? What's the mechanism in the evaluation process that helps you determine, again, who gets more and who gets less and who gets the average?
Right. Kimberly, did you want to field that one or do you want me to chime in?
Well, I can certainly say that we've decided for this year, there are 2 levels. So in the past, we might have talked about 2 levels versus 3 levels. But for this year being our inaugural half year, we decided to make this as straightforward, or the decision was made to make it as straightforward as possible. So there will be a consistent performance level and a stretch performance level, just 2.
And the amount it can't be determined now because we don't know what the budget will allow for,
Or how many people will land in each band?
yeah. I mean, it seems like this is an opportunity to do some what if scenarios that allows for, I think, some, I don't know, quantitative ability to say, how is this actually gonna be deployed? That's still not really clear to me, that's all.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, we're not trying to do a bell curve. We're not trying to say only so many people can get meets and so many people can get exceeds. I think we're hoping everybody gets exceeds. Everybody is doing the work to get exceeds, but I think we're gonna learn a lot as we go through this process, but our budget is, we have the budget to fund everybody meeting exceeds. That doesn't mean we're gonna spend it, but we're not saying a third of the people have to be in one category and 2/3 in the other because of budget.
Okay. Well, this, I don't know about the rest of the board, but I mean, this is a kind of, maybe this is too much detail, I don't know, but it's a kind of information that might be helpful so that the employees have a sense as what's gonna happen this year. Because what's gonna happen this year is not, if I hear it, necessarily what's gonna happen the next year. So maybe I'm just going down a rabbit hole here, but I'd be curious if other members of the.
No, I agree. I guess I was struggling a little bit with how the goal setting in here maps onto a merit. I mean, I understand the sort of, the step increase is based on the quality or not quality, is my understanding of how it works.
The actual.
But then the goals section is separate, and my understanding is that that leads to merit, but I don't understand how it's evaluated or, filtered into a merit.
Right,
That's
so
what is that?
yeah,
Yeah.
so the goals are all goals that are tangible and measurable, and as Kimberly was explaining, they all roll up to the top. So you have the select board goals, then Carrie set her goals as the town manager with the board, and then that funneled down to all of the SMT members. And Kimberly, I don't think we actually shared this, but I think it's important that Kimberly worked with each SMT member to put together our respective goals. And then the latest level of rollout was to work with our respective either our staff or our divisions. In the case of Megan and I know I've met with mine. I'm not sure if you had a chance yet, it just came out, but so I met with all of my various division heads to kind of explain the roll-up of goals, and now we're working on building goals with them. And then they have that understanding to then say, okay, for our staff below us, what should those goals look like? So that everything basically rolls up to what the goals of the town are, and then hopefully those are things that people will be able to accomplish. And then certainly there could be goals that people had that they've already completed because they had some preliminary goals set out at the beginning of the fiscal year, so that would all be factored in as well. So people aren't gonna be expected to do a year's worth of goals in 6 months. A lot of things people have already made good progress on. We definitely want to take that into consideration as well. Does that help?
No, it does. Joe?
I was just gonna, and maybe this is a little bit where you were going, Bill, I'm not sure, but sometimes the ratings are connected to pay, pros and cons to that, so as I'm looking at the rating scale here, like the quality performance 1, 2, or 3, where someone falls, does that directly connect with where they get up between a 1, a 2, and a 3% or somewhere in that range? Or is it more manager discretion?
No.
And not a direct correlation to the actual rating?
No, the overall rating determines yes or no, do you get the step increase?
Okay,
So that's whether you get, this year, a step was 2%. Next year, that'll be determined what the step will be next year, based on market as well as the step increase. But that is just pass fail for the step increase. The goal achievement will determine whether you're a consistent performer or a stretch performer. And that will determine your merit pay, whether you're at the base level or whether you're at the upper level.
Got it. I think my question was probably more for the future state with these new evaluation forms, but that helps.
One of the, I'll just add this in terms of my own experience in the private industry. We had a pool, we had a pot of money. And we knew what it was, and we then took the employees. And based on their merit, we then. We assigned a value to the employees, so that those who were clearly exceptional. They would be at the top, and those who were not exceptional, they would be down at the bottom, but we were able to determine this in advance, so we knew what the money was we had, and we then allocated it through the employee base, based again on the merit. And there were some individuals in terms of exceeding, that they're exceeding really, I mean, what they did was something really outstanding. So we were able to recognize those individuals by giving them a merit component that was exceedingly more than somebody else. So my only, and not at all we have an analogous situation here. But it seems like at least what we've got for this year is we have two categories. We've got, I don't know quite how to explain it, Kimberly, but we've got the exceeds and we've got the less than exceeds, but there's two levels for determination as to whether or not there's a merit increase. And each of those categories has its predetermined value. Is that correct?
What, if I understand you correctly, each of those categories has a predetermined set of goals, right? As to whether the person will achieve all of their meets expectations goal or whether they will achieve the stretch goal. And that will determine what level of merit pay. Remember that the study that was approved at the town meeting says that the merit pay is going to be, it's not going to be an increase in base pay. It's going to be a cash payout, basically an incentive payout.
Right.
And
Right.
there should be multiple levels, right? So there should be a differentiation between those who are meeting and those who are going beyond. And so that's what we're looking to do with the merit pay for this 6-month cycle.
But there's only two, you can be in one category or the other category.
For
And
this,
if you're in the stretch, everyone who's in a stretch will get the same merit percentage
Yes.
percentage.
yes, we'll get the higher increase amount, higher incentive amount.
But then next year, could you help me understand how is it next year gonna differ from this year?
It's just going to be a full year. And we'll have an opportunity to assess, how did this work? Do we want to make changes for next year, et cetera?
Okay.
The only difference this first year, obviously, is we're working on a compressed time schedule because of, approvals and so forth. We only have 6 months to evaluate, on which to evaluate. Next year,
Right.
we'll have a full 12 months on which to evaluate.
Kimberly, I'm wondering if I could get you to comment on two things. One, just the amount of time, how long we've been working at this, because I'm not sure that that's really coming across to the group. And the second would be some of the feedback that you received from employees in terms of like individual goals versus team goals, and the reactions that people had to individual goals specifically. I'm wondering, since I wasn't a part of those conversations and you're here, it'll be better coming from you.
Okay, so your first topic was which?
How long have we been working at this?
We've been working at this a while. As soon as the payouts were finished for FY25 salary increase plan, we began work on this and setting up goals. And of course, we wanted to build the goals off of the select board goals for the year and the town manager goals for the year, some of which were only approved in October. And so we were working at this before the goals were even finally approved. And, this is something that is new. It's a new take on how we're gonna provide incentives to our personnel and how we're going to cascade these goals throughout the organization so that everyone's pulling in the same direction. And it's really an awesome opportunity for the employees to line up and pull in the same direction. And I did, as Carrie mentioned, I did reach out to supervisors and have individual conversations with, I believe there were 48 supervisors that I spoke to. And each of them, without fail, was very engaged and very interested in how to make this work so that employees themselves and their employees can strive toward, a common goal. And they had such innovative ideas about projects within their areas of operation that could really move the town forward. Some items that maybe have been kind of languishing since the pandemic, things that they'd love to clean up or make adjustments to or improvements to, that would really help either town initiatives or departments that they rely on or that rely on them. And it was really interesting and enlightening to see some of the synergy that division supervisors, division managers could foresee being appropriate goals for themselves and their people. And so, Carrie, I hope that's helpful. If that was kind of what you were pointing toward.
Yeah, and I think the only thing that I would add, and Kimberly has basically said it, but I think this is it's such a neat opportunity for employees who are participating in this program at every level of the organization to connect the work that they are doing with the goals that either I've set for the year or the select board has set. And this is, we haven't done this before. And I know from the select board's perspective, they're really interested and excited to see that the work that people are doing towards their goals. And I think this is a great opportunity. And we have been working at it for what feels like forever. And it's great. The level of participation and engagement has been, it's really exciting. So.
And Carrie, I don't know if we've ever mentioned to the board about the LMT meetings that you've instituted. But having all of the leadership and managers together once a month to see them build off each other's enthusiasm, I think we're starting to see some synergy with that as well. And maybe you'd like to mention that.
Yeah, so I guess it was July 1st, we started our first leadership management team meetings. It's once a month. It's a group of about 40. It's all department managers and division managers, department managers, assistant department managers, and division managers, again, coming together once a month for 90 minutes or to 2 hours, depending on what we have on the agenda. One of the reasons why this is so important is we operate out of 14 different locations in town. So people they're not passing each other in the hall when they're, going to the kitchen to get a cup of coffee or something like you would see in other organizations. So this is one of the reasons why it's important. And we've had a number of different topics. A lot of what we've been doing so far is really, I guess, soft skills would call, learning about communication styles, the services and training that are available through Maya, our insurance group. We did a really neat exercise, and I know Megan Zamuto, who's in the room with you, conducted a really neat exercise. So one of the things that we're doing is looking at reuse of properties. And, we have a big public works project coming up and a big public safety project coming up. And we did a really neat exercise using our GIS capability and had our team in different groups and talking through different scenarios on how our facilities might look in the future. So those are just some of the things that we've done, and we've had really good feedback, good participation, and a lot of it is just people getting to know each other.
Well, this is a very innovative and certainly a very encouraging and positive step. I'm curious, and maybe Kate, or Jess, are there other communities, other towns that have something like this in place now?
In terms of the monthly
Merit.
LMT meetings
No,
or the
merit.
performance? I know when I worked in Bedford, we had a merit-based system. I don't know if they're still doing it there or not. And I'm sure there's a few others out there. I think it is, I don't wanna say
Okay.
cutting edge, but I think it is a little different for municipalities, but I think it is, in line with certainly what the private sector does. And I think again, as we're looking to attract and retain talent, and these are the types of things people are looking for, and especially some of the younger generations, they want that feedback, they wanna have discussions, they wanna have that relationship with a supervisor, which this will certainly assist that tool in terms of getting people talking more with their staff and looking at those collaborative goals for the whole organization, not just their little area of the world or Concord.
Well, I think that it's certainly will be interesting to see how this rolls out, and certainly feedback from the rollout can be incorporated into next year. I just urge you to, there are, from my experience, a handful of individuals that clearly can make and do make a real difference. They've really gone out of their way to achieve their own goals, but also the corporate goals, the town goals. And that, I don't see how those handful of people are gonna be able to be recognized in this merit system that we have now, because everybody, there's two categories. There's succeeds and there's a stretch, or whatever the right words I'm not using. And I think there is value to, another thing that we did in private industry, if we had really an outstanding accomplishment, somebody did something, we gave a bonus. That particular mechanism, vehicle, is probably not at all even possible in a municipality to do. But it's those folks, the ones that are driving the organization, driving the town, that they know that they're gonna be recognized in a way that's a little bit more than the other 80% or whatever. I just, in my experience, that group, and it changes every year. We need to think about how can we recognize them from a merit standpoint? Anyway,
That's a good point.
I don't know.
There are, outside of merit and pay-based, one thing we're doing in Wayland is the town manager has a monthly newsletter, and so we have basically an employee spotlight, so I will sort of query all of our department heads and division managers, and you can, it's not, monetary, but it
Yeah.
can be, having some recognition amongst your peers and the community itself can also be really valuable too. That way.
Absolutely,
So
right,
it's just,
right.
there are other ways to do it without merit.
Right. No, that's certainly.
Yeah.
Free park.
Actually, a reserve parking spot.
Yeah, there you go.
Might be a really nice bonus
Be
to get.
careful with those.
No, right.
On the pay side, one of the tools that I've used in the past is just carving out a 0.5%. So let's say you're, whatever the town can afford, or depending on the year may differ. Make up numbers, let's say 3% is the budget that the town can afford. You could purposefully say then 2.5% is the base amount, and you save 0.5% to use and spread across the whole workforce for promotions, market adjustments, recognition of high performance. That's how I've done this in the past. I mean, it's the best way to do it, but it is an option. Obviously, you still have to make choices then on who gets base versus who really falls into that other pool, but it's a way to at least budget for it so that you know you have money that you can take care of the fringe people that really should be recognized for the work that they're doing. Or maybe lagging market, one or the other.
Well, I think this has been a good discussion, at least to expand a little on what is proposed, and obviously an innovative approach. And hopefully we'll capture some of this in the minutes, but I think there's some other thoughts here that could have some potential value for the future
Definitely.
as the program, as the processes are defined. Thank you, Carrie, for your input. Appreciate that. Kimberly, you have something else you're gonna talk about?
I don't believe so.
I just wanted to say one thing. I just wanted to say that I'm actually really impressed with the tool itself. I mean, it was clearly very well thought out and you put a lot of work into it. So I just wanted to say kudos on all the work that you put into this, because it looks like a really useful tool.
Thank you. You know, I will say, when I did my one-on-ones with the supervisors, I did ask them if because so many of our folks have come from outside Concord in recent years, if they had forms that they liked, or portions of forms that they had used in the past that they liked, to please send them in. And so we did have a lot to choose from. We had a great bevy of options in front of us, and really appreciate everyone's inputs and support.
A lot of, as Kate points out, a lot of good work, a lot of hard work. And I think the town is clearly moving forward in the right direction. And I think some of our thoughts are just, how can we actually make it even better? Is the way to think about it. All right, so
I think
Jess?
Mr. McCone might have a question
Oh,
or
okay.
comment. I don't know if you want to
Sure,
entertain questions
sure.
or comments.
You're there.
I think I'm unmuted here. Just a couple of, one observation and maybe one question. With respect to the actual performance evaluations that are in the meeting materials, is the training that will be provided to the supervisors or to the folks that'll be doing the evaluations on how to measure, say, knowledge of something or understanding of something? And the reason I bring this up actually goes back a couple of years ago to a member of the present personnel board, which I thought was a very astute comment, which was Bill. And he made a comment about using behavioral objectives that you can measure and be able to justify versus one employee versus another, where you're rating that person from the form that they understand something or their knowledge of something. I go back to the 70s when I got my teaching certificate. We were getting away from these vague terms in measuring. We were going to behavioral objectives where you could measure. I think, just opinion, that many of the criteria that you're going to be checking off boxes on is very vague. And employees compare their evaluations with each other. I know I worked for the town for 30 years. And you have to be able to answer as the evaluator, what's the difference? What are you looking for in that criteria? And this is something that Bill brought up quite some time ago, and I agreed with him. That's just an observation. With respect to the flat dollar thing, I don't think it's a great idea. I don't think the employees like it. I've talked to a lot of the employees. It effectively is a bonus, not a merit, because it's not going into your retirement and it's not going into your flat rate. Maybe that's by design, but I don't think it's a good idea. And I am curious as to what feedback the employees have given the personnel board. Do they even know that this is going to be an ongoing thing? Has there been outreach to them that they can comment on? That's just another, and something that Jess said with regard to the goals. Is it tangible and measurable? And I just go back to my first comment. Are these things that you're rating them on measurable so that you can justify it? And are the evaluators going to be trained on how to measure just an employee's knowledge of something? You're going to be rating them on their knowledge of criteria. What are you basing that on? So I'm a bit skeptical of this flat dollar, as well as the actual rating system. So just a comment from a past employee. Thank you.
Paul, thank you very much for your contribution there. It might be worthwhile, Kimberly or Jess, just to answer the one part of Paul's point having to do with the training. And how do you anticipate, you haven't done any training yet, but how do you anticipate addressing the point that Paul makes about how do you evaluate knowledge? What is your, it appears on the surface, I guess, it's a pretty subjective, it's a qualitative,
Right.
that there's no quantitative basis that a supervisor, manager, whatever is going to be able to have. So the training is obviously going to be critical to addressing the point that Paul has made.
Sure. I mean, I have my thoughts I'm happy to share, and if Kimberly wants to share some as well. Knowledge really comes down to, if from my perspective, years of experience. Sometimes I tend to rate newer employees a little lower because they have more to learn, because, if you're in your first year of the job, you aren't going to be as knowledgeable in theory as somebody who's got 15 or 20 years on the job. But that's also part of the discussion. When I've done reviews like that, I'm like, I always tell people, this is where you're at now. I'm fully expecting, as you continue to grow and evolve within the position and gain more knowledge, go to more trainings, go to more seminars, and better know the community as a whole in terms of what's needed, that those ratings will go up. And that's kind of how I've looked at it. Kimberly, I don't know if you have additional thoughts on how you've looked at or rated, knowledge.
Kimberly, you're muted, or
I'm doing my best to find the mute button. Certainly appreciate the comments, and I'll just draw your attention to the section under job knowledge, which is not that there aren't knowledge items within other categories, but under job knowledge, we're looking acquires and maintains the technical skills and knowledge required by the job. I'm not sure if I understand the questions fully, but I believe that our supervisors who have a cadre of employees who are performing work in the field or in the office, I think they have an idea of who has meets expectations knowledge level and who has beyond expectations knowledge level. Understanding of department rules, procedures, workflow, policy, and operations. There may be some subjectivity to these, of course, but I believe that our employees can look at their group of employees and determine where they fall within the 3-point scale. Willingness and initiative to acquire additional knowledge and assume new tasks. Who is raising their hand saying, put me in, coach, and who is more reserved and less likely to do so. Knowledge of when to answer a question, when and how to refer it to someone else, and to whom it should be referred. Those are the 4 job knowledge items. And remember that this evaluation form these boxes that we're talking about are not part of merit pay, whether you get a meets expectations payout or a stretch payout. This is whether you qualify for the step increase or not to your base pay. And I hope that's helpful.
I appreciate the answer. I would just come back and say that I would hope in this day and age that an evaluation is based on something you can measure. And I think subjective and the supervisors know who's doing this and know who's doing that. And little curious about Jess's answer with regards to the number of years you have on. I've known a few superstars that came in the door that were really, really good. And you might not necessarily be judging on how long they've been there. I personally think that the evaluation form is way too subjective for the evaluators. I've been an evaluator in town. I've done all the cops, and I haven't done equipment operators at the DPW, but those are the questions that get asked. Well, how are you rating me? What are you drawing your conclusion on? And you can answer that if the rating is behavioral. If it says you are able to do X, Y, and Z, and then the subjective part belongs in the comments. That's just my opinion. I think there's some issues here, and I think you're going to hit them. I know nothing's perfect, but that's it. I don't want to tell you anything. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks very much. I think Paul's raised, several points here that are worthwhile, perhaps just a little bit more time. And that is, if I understand the form, it makes no difference if somebody is new to the job or been here 20 years. That variable does not factor into the ratings. It factors into the merit, perhaps. But and on one hand, it seems like those individuals that are brand new, they probably, maybe there are some aspects of the job they're not fully knowledgeable about. Now, you'd hope that they're in the job because they satisfy the job description, and the job description has some specific requirements in terms of background, experience, education, and so forth. But I'm looking at the form and trying to think in the training, is there any mention about the fact that how a supervisor should think about those that he has working for him, those that are brand new, those who've been here a year or two, and those that have been here much longer? Is there any thought that if there's any value in the training to help answer essentially partly the question that Paul has raised, but help supervisors respond to the issue that I've been raising here?
Kimberly, did you want to speak to that?
If I understand you correctly, Bill, a couple things are at play here. We're talking about instituting an evaluation form for a 6-month window to do both a performance evaluation for the year, do you qualify for a step increase or not, and a merit pay goal achievement calculation, if you will. Are you a consistent performer or a stretch performer? I think some of what Mr. McCone was talking about is very interesting in that we've had discussions separate and apart from the evaluation, because as you know, we are working very diligently to institute something for a 6-month window. It is not a full year analysis for sure. So it has been under some time constraint. But what I believe we're talking about with regards to behavioral and being able to observe behavior that checks a certain box is what I've referred to in my prior lives as skills matrix. So if you're in a role where there are 10 things that you need to do, and I think the equipment operator was brought up, so I'll use that. if you have a skills matrix in place, then an employee demonstrates that they're able to perform skill 1, 2, 3, 4. Typically, that's been used for promotions within like a series of jobs, like an equipment operator 1 versus 2 versus 3. So people who can demonstrate a certain cadre of skills are in the 1 category. They graduate, if you will, to the 2 category, and they can graduate even further once they master certain skills to the 3 category. There is a great deal of value in that for sure. That is not what we're talking about today, and it doesn't mean that it can't be incorporated for the future. But for this initiative, we are looking at and proposing to you what you have before you tonight. And if you have suggestions on from the board how you would like to make this more behaviorally based, certainly open to hearing that and considering that and implementing them.
Thank you, Kimberly. Any thoughts from the board on board?
No, I mean, you're trying to make what my experience with this, I think everyone raises good points, is an imperfect process perfect to some degree. There's always subjectivity in performance management. An employee is always going to have a point of view and a manager is going to have a point of view. I think the process you're trying to put in place is one that's fair and as objective as you can make it, knowing that pre-existing kind of dynamic exists. From my experience, I mean, I do think goal setting, which maybe addresses some of what the citizen commented about, addresses that because it can be very specific to here's what an employee is asked to deliver, and here's how we're going to measure that, whether it's a number or whether it's a result or an outcome of what that goal is, like it could be a project. And that provides clarity typically for an employee and manager to sit down and have a real conversation about, did you do well or did you not when you have a good goal setting process? So I would emphasize that, and whatever the town does long-term, kind of beyond the 6-month window. Again, you're still gonna have subjectivity because even with a number, there's circumstances that get in the way that, well, yeah, but, COVID happened, so I didn't deliver my goal. Or, something happened externally, unemployment's high, I mean, there's always something that's gonna happen where people's performance could be affected by uncontrollable factors. So I just think as much as you can make it about a number and it's objective and easy to know whether someone did well or not, I would caution everyone to think that you can take all of that subjectivity out of the process. Or you'd be one of the first, maybe you can teach me if you figure that out.
Well, again, it's regular conversations with your employees, it should be a tool. When people get this performance review, there should be nothing on it that's a shock. Because you should be setting those goals and then having those meetings all year long. And basically communicating with your people. You shouldn't just be meeting with a staff member once a year for a review and then you never speak to them about the pros or the cons of their performance is how I look at it.
And the other point I would just make, and it's already in here, is the opportunity for employees to they don't have final say on their rating or outcome, but definitely should have input and meaningful input. When an employee and a manager sit down, again, for my 20 years of doing this, making these conversations as much as you can, a two-way conversation, and not just saying that, will help you guys as you kind of go on this adventure, because, it's not just a one-way street.
Thank you, Joe. And Kate or Josh? Okay,
Yeah, because
Yeah.
he said it very eloquently, yes.
I think the town will learn a lot from, putting this in place. And, we could contribute, or we could talk about some of the questions here or the evaluation criteria that is set. There's one in particular that I would not encourage that it be there, but that's, it's there, and so, we can, as a board, can be ears and eyes to how this rolls out, and, we can see what kind of feedback, the town receives, and everything is a work in progress. I mean, it does take a while. And I just encourage, again, the town to really think about the training aspect. I think Paul made a good point, and also what can the employees expect? So there is that focus groups, which is good to be having, but I think you have to really give thought to what are you going to focus on? What is the conversation going to be? Because the most important thing is that this comes out as a win-win for everybody. And we try to anticipate those particular little points that perhaps we need to maybe correct or improve or whatever, but we really need to ensure that the town employees and the citizens of the town are all in concert here.
Did you wanna share which section you didn't? think should
No,
be in the
no,
form?
I,
Maybe offline with me later, cause I'm curious now. Maybe
Well,
there's
you know,
some merit there.
it's
to
one of
it.
those kind of things, you read something and then you say, that doesn't really make sense, so,
Is it a whole section or like a letter
no,
letter
no.
section? Alright.
well. I would not, it's dependability.
Okay,
B, no pattern of unexcused sick leave. In my mind,
Mm.
that comes out as a negative. I don't see any purpose to have a negative be a part of an evaluation. Because it sort of brings into question how, I'm trying to think of the right word here, we're not we want people to be at work. That's the important thing, but I don't see the value of saying no pattern of unexcused sick leave. So in my mind, that's a negative. Why introduce a negative into this process? Just my 2 cents.
no, I think that's good feedback. I was just curious and I can noodle on that a little bit with Kimberly and see if we can, consider either changing it, rewording it, taking it out
For me,
altogether.
I would just delete it, but that's,
Just get rid of the whole
that-
thing.
that's- I just don't like the tone of the sentence, that's all.
Yeah, no, that's good. Thanks for sharing. I know I kind of.
Thank you for being willing to share.
It's not my tone. Anyway, I'm sure if I looked at this a little longer, I might, since I seem to have opinions, I might have, I'll do that, just for the benefit.
Yeah, no, we definitely want the feedback from this group, so, please share anything like that. You know how to find both Kimberly and I, so.
So we're gonna move on in the agenda, and I do want to thank, Paul for his comments, attending the meeting on Zoom and having something that he wanted to talk about. And because of his vast experience, Paul was a member of the Personnel Task Force, contributed greatly to that document and has contributed greatly to the town. And so his willingness to invest his time tonight, I really appreciate a lot. Speaks well for having former members of the town who's still having an interest in the town and having an interest in having an environment which is as beneficial and as positive as possible. All right, we're gonna go on to item 4, review and vote PPP 12-1.
That's me. So we are proposing actually the elimination of PPP 12-1, which is specific to the administration of holiday pay for BD Center employees. So at this point in time, the BD Center is closed for all of the town observed holidays. And so eliminating this policy actually gives a greater benefit to the BD employees. It gives them the same number of paid holidays as the rest of the town employees that are subject to the personnel bylaw.
Did you wanna go a little bit into kind of some of the discussions you had with Christine and Shauna, and just to kind of spell out some of the history on
why we had this. in-
Yeah, so it's my understanding that this policy was created, 12-1 was created because the BD Center operates on a 7-day work schedule. And so they had to get creative with allowing the use of holidays and things like that with, what am I trying to say? Let me pull it up. No, I don't know if the one in the packet is correct. This is not the policy that's on the website.
Oh, yeah, it's got the 25.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the draft one.
Oh, yeah,
Apologies.
it's not the same.
Yeah, it's not the same, so.
Let me send it around. I'll pull the one from the web and send it around just so everybody has it in front of them.
So while you guys are doing that, can you just clarify, so are we? What's the current state? Meaning what do the BD's people get and the rest of the town?
They follow PPP 12 with the town employees, they get, that's actually what's in this policy.
So the BD Center is closed
Yes, they're
on-
closed.
on each one of these holidays.
Yep, the same as the town observed holidays, and so they're granting that paid holiday to those employees now. Whereas before, the center may have been open and they would have been required to, and not been eligible for a paid
I just
holiday.
sent it around. so you
But
can-
there was never a point where one or the other had more holidays or less holidays.
The town
That's
had
just-
more than the BD Center,
So, or is the BD Center going to gain holidays by doing this?
yes.
How many?
Let's see.
So.
But I think that the point on this one too, Erin, was they're already following the new holiday the holiday schedule that everybody else follows currently.
They're just unpaid on the holidays that they don't currently get, or because if they're scheduled off. And they don't have the same holidays as the rest of the town employees, I'm assuming they're just unpaid today, is that the difference?
They are paid. They're
They're
effectively
paying, and even
following,
though they're not designated in a policy, we're still paying them.
yes.
There's one, I mean. There's one group here that, trying to think of, talking to myself here, you know, you've got the citizens. Who on a holiday. I wonder how many of those would like to be able to have use of the BD Center. Because, you know, today they have off and they don't wanna cut the grass, but they're happy to go over and, and swim. So that particular group then there's no accommodation that's, I guess there's never been an accommodation for those, or has there?
I think there was historically, and that's why the policy with 12-1 was created to kind of accommodate some of those holidays still being opened or closed versus like a partial day or a whole day.
That was, my question's the same as Bill's, like, does that mean we're gonna lock in this practice of the BD Center just always being closed on every town holiday? Which I note in the old policy, it's remarking on the competitive fitness space and the need to be, it operates like a quasi business, so, why do we want the BD Center closed on all those days? Why don't we wanna stick with the way it had been and open sometimes? Do we know?
I don't know if I know the answer to that.
No, I was actually looking to see their schedule now, because from what I understand from the discussions, they're already closed on the days, that's been the practice. And if I remember correctly, Erin, this had something to do with when we implemented the new class and comp study, the full-time people that get the holidays became part of the class and comp, right? Whereas before they were on the miscellaneous schedule, people didn't get the holidays.
I guess, and I don't know if this is where it's gonna go, but like, having experience in 24/7 work environments. That didn't have any holidays off technically. We would just pay people extra pay, and it'd be like double time and a half. Which I don't know if that's a way to get around the fact, if the BD Center wanted to operate on a holiday, you still. Don't have to close because you're designating it as a holiday that will not be operated. But are still compensating people extra for having to come in that day. There may be a way to craft this policy to do both. I don't know whose decision is it to make a decision on whether the BD Center operates. Is our
It's the rec
hypothesis
commissions.
even accurate? I don't know, it would make sense to me, but I don't know if they were open on a holiday, it would kind of be unfortunate if no one went. And they were
Right.
paying extra to have someone be there. Be interesting. I'm sure they have the data if they used to be open.
It seems to me that the competition likely, I mean, you'd have to do a survey, but it's very possible that the competition for the BD Center, what the BD Center offers, is open on that day. I'm thinking of the Thoreau Club or Planet Fitness. There's a lot of other entities out there, so I don't,
Or it's very limited in terms of the days that they were closed.
yes, very,
Maybe a
yeah.
couple a year.
So, again, I think we're raising a point here in terms of, yes. You know, has there been enough thought put into strategically how the BD Center functions for and taking into account the employees as well as the citizens? And I'm not sure I have a comfortable feeling that
Yeah,
this has been.
we can circle back and bring this again. I had hoped that somebody from recreation might be on tonight as well, but they were unable to make it. But we can group, unless there's anything else you wanted to go over from your notes, Aaron, and we'll table this till next time and come back with a better, cause I don't think we're explaining it right. I'm actually trying to look up now
Well, and you
on
can
B's
circulate
page
it,
to find out when
yeah.
they're closed, cause they should have the closures on their
like, they're
website.
closed all the time.
One other
Jake, you got-
comment is that there are some other, pieces in this policy that are not just about what days they're closed. So there's pay pieces, and then so would they just revert to what all the other non-union, and are there differences between those pieces, like holiday pay versus float and all this?
Right.
There's some other elements, and I guess my concern is that we're gonna lose something here that might be important to BD versus the rest of your population.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And on the holidays work, it kind of addresses my point from earlier about if they were to run the center on a holiday, how do you appropriately compensate people? It covers non-exempt people as getting extra pay, and it talks
Mhm.
about exempt getting basically another day off that they
Yeah.
can take off instead of that
Like
holiday.
the floatings, yeah.
So that, yeah, I mean, I guess there's some things there around what the rest of the town does that you may want to be consistent with or not, I don't know.
All right, we'll regroup on this one and we'll push this off to next
Okay.
month and we'll get everything squared away.
So we're gonna move on to classification actions. We've got
Yes.
3 positions.
Yes, we do. So, the first one is the Director of Community Development. This is actually I don't wanna say resurrection, but it's a position that was in existence at one point, formerly held by Marcia Rasmussen, the town planner. Megan Zamuto, our Deputy Town Manager, has assumed that role, since Marcia left, but now we're looking to bring it back, given the demands, the workload, the projects happening in town. So we did go through and rate it, which now it's gonna be a Director of Community Development. I think Marcia had been Planning Director, Director of Community Development Planning. Slightly different, but this is the proposed job description coming in at a grade 16, and Megan is here to talk a little bit about the work she's been doing and why this is a need to now bring this back and implement this position and bring that individual on board.
Great, thank you very much. My name is Megan Zamuto. I'm the Deputy Town Manager, and I'm happy to be with you this evening. Jess covered a lot of the key points. But I can just kind of walk through a little bit of a timeline so you can understand why I'm here before you today. So Marcia Rasmussen was the Director of Planning and Land Management. She had been with the town for 37 years and had quite a historical knowledge, and quite a portfolio of projects that she worked on. She oversaw natural resources planning, health, and building. And then in the last few years, she also oversaw tourism. And so when she was planning her retirement at the end of FY '23, that's when I was hired as the deputy town manager for the town of Concord. And I came from the town of Maynard, where I held a similar role. So it was a smaller town, smaller staff, less projects, but I was the assistant town administrator and also oversaw a similar portfolio of divisions. So it kind of made sense for me to temporarily overlap with Marcia while she was finishing up her time, to try to transfer some of that historical knowledge in a few months and temporarily kind of assess the department and determine what we thought would make sense for a new structure going forward. And so after a few months, the decision was made for me to actually hold on to those responsibilities and to keep the management of those divisions, which I was very excited to do, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. And but then about a year into it, we got some news about MCI Concord. We got a couple other big projects that are going on. We have not really new, but some exciting land use opportunities between the Peabody School, 2229 Main Street. There's been some more urgency around cell phone coverage and trying to solve that. So there's been some demands on the time and some of the projects that I've been overseeing as deputy town manager, while also being the direct supervisor to the folks in DPLM, which we're rebranding to community development. You know, it kind of got to a point where we weren't doing as much of the strategic planning as we'd like. I also want to note, I did come before you. I was on Zoom last time, probably about a year ago, when our plan for that full-time employee was to repurpose it, Marcia's position, to repurpose it for a transportation planner. So when I was kind of looking at the organization and the office and thinking about where I needed some extra support, transportation is a major of a major importance to this community. As you know, it's a key component of Envision Concord. It is something that we need to bring more expertise to. So we did create a position and we did try to recruit for it, and we were not successful. We aren't the only ones. There's a few other towns around that are looking for some specialty skills around transportation planning and have been unable to compete really with the private sector, I think. So when we didn't fill that position, the thought was, really, we have a lot of high level projects. Transportation hasn't been forgotten. It is really the lens in which we look through a lot of our development opportunities, making sure connectivity and sustainability are built into the projects that we're reviewing, and making sure we're asking those questions and teeing up those connection points is still a major priority of the office and the town. But bringing someone on at the senior management level to add to capacity to move forward on some of these initiatives is where we are. So basically, we had a director of planning and land management. I took over. We tried to make a transportation planner. We couldn't get anyone, and realized we needed more senior level support back to where we were before. And so now we're back to this community development director position. Some notable differences, we are going to keep this position to overseeing 4 divisions, which are planning, natural resources, building, and public health. Other divisions, tourism is going to remain under me, along with economic vitality and sustainability. Economic vitality position really didn't exist very much under the former administration under Marcia, and it makes sense to keep economic vitality and tourism kind of together under the same supervisor, so that's why that decision was made. So it's been a little bit of a roller coaster here. Thanks for bearing with me through that timeline, but we're really excited to move forward, you know, pending the approval of this board, because there is a lot going on in this town. It's very exciting, and we're looking to bring in some additional expertise to make sure we're all rowing in the same direction. And this really kind of goes back to your earlier conversation about goals and making sure that all boards and committees and town staff are looking at these goals on a regular basis and asking themselves the questions of like, why am I working on this? It's all to be part of the same initiative and to make sure we're have enough capacity to supervise and really make sure we can check in with all of our teams that we're all making incremental progress on these goals so that, at the end of the fiscal year, we can really be proud of the accomplishments that we're building together. Happy to answer any questions.
I've got one. It's, and I was looking here at the, trying to tie those 4 divisions. There's a big difference between public health and buildings and inspections. The amount of knowledge for building and inspections is quite different than public health. And I look down here in the experience required, and I don't see anything about, not all of the divisions you're looking for in the job description for somebody who's done and has knowledge of that. I mean, maybe I'm missing something here, but knowledge, skills, and abilities, page 2 of 3. Land development, okay, and that's clearly there. But, so I guess my point is, it's gonna be hard, I think, to find an individual for this job in which the people in these divisions will, again, just my opinion, will feel that there's somebody that there's above them that they can go to for advice and for consultation.
Sure, I can speak to that.
And, I don't know, obviously, the town made the decision about having these 4 divisions underneath this particular position. Which is, somebody had to make a decision, but I find they're so disparate that trying to find somebody that can really be a mentor and somebody that can really provide expertise in each of those divisions, I think it's gonna be a big ask.
I think there is quite a bit of overlap in those divisions, and the reason they're together, one of the reasons they're together and currently on the same campus as Public Works is for development opportunities. And so if someone was going to build a house or apply for to open a restaurant in town, there's a lot of overlap in the types of permits and reviews that would need to occur. So I'd say the number 1 overlap between health and building is septic. We have quite a bit of septic. Only 1/3 of our community is on sewer. So there are aging septic systems all over the place. And any type of upgrade and review is gonna require health and building to work together to determine this type of system that's needed. If you're looking to put a deck on your backyard, you're gonna need potentially zoning review. If there's lot coverage, you're gonna need building permit for the actual structure. So there's a lot of synergy in that building, I'd say. I think it is a common grouping. There are other ways to do it, of course. There's ways that you can pull out 1 or 2 of the divisions, but in the 2 communities that I've worked for, Maynard and Lexington, they had the same grouping of divisions together. And I think you raise a really good point about the skills and abilities to supervise these folks. And I'll say in Concord especially, we do have quite a number of subject matter experts and skilled people. Like I said, I've been supervising these folks for about 1.5 years now, and I certainly don't know more about building code issuance in building than the building commissioner. Same goes for the wetland bylaw. I think in my role and in a few different communities, I know enough to be dangerous. I know enough to understand where the rubs are. I understand when a developer comes in and says, I'm frustrated because it seems like these things are in conflict, and I can bring everyone in a room and in front of a whiteboard and be like, let's break this down, like, is there any way we can kind of navigate this? That's the type of cohesive view I'm looking for in a staff person to do this. They need to be able to work with developers that are coming in, they need to understand the town goals, and they need to know people, and they need to respect the folks that have done specific training in these disciplines that are, you know, currently being trained. The whole health team is being trained today out in Springfield, you know, drilling down on really technical specific elements that kind of, as for myself, as kind of more of a generalist, it's beyond what I'm doing. What we are looking to do is have someone, and you noted this in your review of the job description, that does have more of a specialty in planning. And that's because there are a lot of planning projects that we need additional high-level assistance with. The former director really drove home or worked with a lot of town committee members and really vested residents, but was the staff point of contact for the Bruce Green Rail Trail. And so there's a lot of transportation efforts, there's a lot of housing efforts. Our community has a pretty recent housing production plan that we're very interested in moving forward and producing and attaining a lot of different variety of housing. We're gonna need someone who can oversee the offices together, but also have some specialized knowledge to move some of these projects forward. So that's why I think in other towns, it could be folks that have specialties in a couple of the different disciplines, could be the manager or the supervisors, and probably for different circumstances, it shakes out differently. For example, I did more economic development before I stepped into that role in Maynard. But I think having someone with a planning background is gonna best support this department and help us chip away. If you look at the select board and town manager goals, so many of them are related to land use and either, you know, preservation or reuse of municipal property. So we really need to kind of bring in someone who has some experience, who can help us get to the next level there.
So I noticed that, yeah, it's a master's degree. And you've got planning, public administration, or a related field. And then you've got the conjunction and. So. Are you, Jess, are you confident, Aaron, confident that we're gonna be able to find a master's degree person for plus 10 years experience to satisfy the job description?
I think we will definitely find somebody that has that, or again, that lovely catch-all equivalent combination of education and experience. I mean, if we get somebody with, you know, just a bachelor's in a planning field or something, but they've got, you know, 15 or 20 years of experience, that will more than suffice. But as Megan said, this is a critical position for us with all of the projects and NCI and all the land use that's happening in town. We really need somebody that can focus on this and be a strong manager to work with those divisions down there. A lot of this will just be kind of managing the people. We have very solid division leaders within each of those groups. Some of them are very long tenure. They know their jobs really well, but I think it's just kind of, you know, corralling everybody and managing and expanding on the collaboration efforts. Did you say that?
Yeah, and I think something exciting about this is since there are folks in similar positions across the Commonwealth, they might have done something very similar in another place, but are coming to Concord because this is really the top place to be. I mean, it's competitive, it's exciting, it's in a great location. Folks that are interested in conservation and natural resources and history. I mean, the prison redevelopment is in the paper all the time. So it could be someone who's done this, and this is really a step up in their career to do it at a really kind of competitive and higher level in Concord. So I think I'm really optimistic about it.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
I think it places a premium though on the division heads. I don't know what the right terminology is, but you know, I think the building and inspections division, it's really important that whoever's leading that group, you know, has the full support and has, you know, because the person who's director of community development is not likely gonna have a big, resume of, you know, what's the electrical code and what are the considerations, you know, public health is another. You know, what is the monkeypox? And how do you even track that? I mean, I asked at a chairs meeting that question. And, you know, I would think that the person who I talked with would say, well, you know, my boss. That's where I'm gonna get this information. Well,
Yeah, I think we have a little bit of a different model, right? And I mean, it's like,
it's not impossible. I'm just saying
yeah.
it places a premium though on
And-
the level of
Yeah.
competency.
Well, and, I mean, the way I see my role currently in the position is to, I think it's helpful to have the division managers have to explain things to me like a layperson, because sometimes in some ways I am, and it's kind of a checkpoint there. We definitely support professional development here in Concord, I'm sure as you know, and put a real emphasis on regional collaboration and investing in the relationships with other professionals in the area. And I think that a manager's role can be asking the right questions and trying to tease out things that the folks that are the technical in the weeds might not be thinking about, because they are trying to solve monkeypox or something else. And it's like, wait a second, let's step back and look at what is our role and responsibility here? How are we working with our partners and our neighbors, and just the overarching look at the lens of the high level goals of the community. But I hear you, and that, you know, this person wouldn't be expected to be a subject matter expert, as Marsha wasn't and as I'm not. You know, I think it'd be unusual to have someone in this role that was proficient in all these various disciplines, and so there's gonna have to be some areas that they're gonna have to learn and kind of work to understand the rub points and how, you know, I think in a service-based leadership model, which is I think how we try to operate here, is how can we, what resources and how can we serve our staff and our division managers so that they can do everything that they need to do. And for our team, it's training, it's connection, and it's listening and making sure that they, you know, have what they need to do to accomplish the goals that they set forth.
Okay.
Few quick comments, sorry.
Well, that's okay. I was just gonna say from having worked in a municipality, this model, I know it sounds kind of odd to lump these four departments together, these divisions together, but it's actually a model that I think we're actually in Wayland, we're trying to, you know, get to eventually, because while it sounds like they sound like they do very different things, they really actually work very much in concert together, especially in development and building. And so the permitting process for everything needs a permit, and they all have to go touch these various areas. So it makes a lot of sense to sort of combine them and have them all kind of working toward the same goal.
Good, thank you. That's helpful.
Just on the reporting relationship, on the description, it says to the town manager. I don't think that's what you guys have planned, or is it reporting to?
It is, it's gonna report to the town manager. The way Carrie, I don't know if Carrie's.
She had to go to another meeting.
The way Carrie's describing it is with a dotted line to me. I think, the expectation is that I will provide, the day-to-day kind of oversight and support. Partially because I've been doing this here for a while now. And secondly, my portfolio as deputy town manager, it does include a lot of the land use things. And so, while this will be an opportunity to delegate some, elements to this person, I imagine we're gonna work in concert, especially on things like the land use efforts and MCI Concord, and just being a team in, kind of sharing what I've learned so far, but also allowing them to kind of take their management in the direction that they see fit and why they're hired to be here.
Okay. And then the other question is on titling. I think we've talked about this in the past with other jobs. Is it a director to director, or do we have different titles for the people running buildings, natural resources, planning, and public health?
It is, I can tell you what they are. So we do have a health, public health director, that is one. We have a building commissioner. We have a natural resources director, and currently the planning position is town planner.
So it may not matter in the town world, but in my world, we typically would avoid same level titles reporting into the same, but you guys can
Oh, yeah.
deal with
we can do
that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does get a little bit confusing when it comes to divisions and departments, and, we have, some people would use those terms, interchangeably, but we don't, they mean something different for us, so it is, I mean, the way, you know, the health division, some places might have a health department, we have a health division as part of this
Right.
department,
And like, we have the Human Services Division, which technically I'm the Director of Human Services as well. I'm like Kate Middleton, I have like 10 different titles, but I only use one or two most commonly. But you know, we have a Recreation Director that falls under that, a Council on Aging Director
Right.
that falls under that, so it's pretty consistent.
So probably a whole other conversation, but it's kind of back to your point about kind of org design, if we can ever play a role in working with the town on kind of sorting through that stuff, that may or may not be helpful, meaning structure, titling, layers and that kind of stuff, but if it all works for the town and everybody gets it and it doesn't cause confusion, then
yeah, and you know, I'm
That
thinking
works
back
too.
to other towns I've worked in, and it was the same, like,
Yeah.
in Maynard, I was assistant town administrator and executive director of municipal services, and reporting to me was the planning director. You know, it's just.
Yeah.
We have it a little backwards, but we're all kind of have it that way. It's usually.
And
At least
one
we don't
people
have
that
a
works.
bank situation where you have an associate assistant vice president to the senior vice president.
Well, we have the deputy town manager and assistant town manager, we all kind
Well,
of,
we-
it gets
yeah,
confusing
I guess-
too, but.
Well, I think we're ready to perhaps entertain a motion to approve this job description.
I would move to approve the job description for Director of Community Development.
Second, yeah.
Okay, so all in favor, Kate?
Yes.
Brian?
yes.
Yeah.
And Bill Marachek, yes. Megan, thank you.
Thank you
for,
for your
Thank you.
time and
For
your
being
thoughtful
here.
questions, I appreciate it.
All right, so the next one up is new role of procurement manager. I had hoped our CFO could join us tonight, but he too is double booked, I believe, with retirement board this evening. So this position is one that currently does not exist at the moment. We did have at one point a budgeting and procurement director combination position. That was held, I believe, by either John Harris or Brendan, whose last name escapes me. So that's been vacant for a little while. We use that FTE to create the Assistant Chief Financial Officer position. We have another vacant FTE in finance right now that we're proposing to plug this procurement manager position in. So this would be full-time focusing on all things procurement. We do have somebody now who is working 20 hours a week on procurement, but that's predominantly focused on the middle school building project, which, believe it or not, that's a significant amount of procurement hours just for that one building project. But simultaneously, that individual is helping where she can within her limitations of hours with other procurement matters, but kind of tying into the discussion we just had about all the development and projects and things in town, like procurements, it's big, and there's a lot of rules associated with Chapter 30B that have to be followed, ticked and tied with bids, RFPs, et cetera. So this would be in the finance department. The rating that we've put together brought it out to a grade 10 on the salary plan. And this is a position we're hoping to start recruiting for in the very near future, assuming this is approved and put through.
Any questions? Comments?
I don't have any questions on the job itself, but a general question or comment about new additional roles for the town and what the approval process currently is. It seems like we are, which I'm sure they're needed, but it seems like monthly we're looking at something to
Yeah.
add to the town from a headcount perspective.
So again, this actually is not adding to headcount, nor is the one we just talked about. So again, the position we just talked about for community development director, that's using existing FTE that had been slotted originally for a transportation planner. So that
So
didn't
kind of
work out, so we're
repurposed
going this.
those.
Yep, in this one, there is an assistant treasurer position, I believe it is, it's currently a vacant FTE. Because that position morphed and moved around, and Rich Delory is now our assistant town accountant. At one point, I'm sorry, he is our town accountant. At one point held the position of, I believe, assistant treasurer. So right now we have a treasurer collector who's actually our CFO. He has a dual role, which is also very common in municipalities for the CFO to be also the town treasurer or the town accountant. Here it happens to be the town treasurer. Then we have a deputy treasurer collector. That's Colleen Reinhardt, so she has that role, and then there used to be an additional assistant treasurer position, but that FTE is in the budget and there, but it's been vacant. I believe since Rich got promoted or even before he got shuffled and moved around. So this is an existing FTE, so we're using that FTE to make this role, very similar to what we did in human resources. We had the data and systems, something or other position. We used that to make a benefits manager because that was a role that was much more of a need. So yes, it was creating a new position and a role, but it was using the existing FTE. So there's no increase to headcount. So I do think that is important to make note of. I'm glad you mentioned that because yes, it's not increasing headcount.
Which happens, and in my world, you know, it's usually budget versus headcount. Where do what you want within your budget, but if you're gonna go above budget mid-year, typically we'd have some approval process. I was just kind of curious. how the
Right,
town
basically
manages
you
that type of
folks are
stuff.
the, folks are the approval process in terms of new positions and being placed on that class and comp. But obviously there's also work that's done over here, like when we look and say, okay, what do we have for vacancies? What does, you know, the budget allow for? Things like that, essentially in terms of creating these new positions and job descriptions. That's why we're bringing that to you here tonight.
Thank you.
Other. I'm gonna make a request, Jess, for just purposes of the typical, I mean, we now have as a standard meeting component, we have the matrix of the, you know, what do we call it, the chart with the,
terms and hires.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, that's, I would like to suggest, could we add the table that has the positions, titles and the grades? You must have that.
Yep.
That's easily,
Yep.
cause I think it would, you know, sort of it's the information that's in the top of each job description. Which, sort of, come on, Bill, you know, the title, department reports to, salary grade, FLSA. Anyway, I would encourage you, if there's something that doesn't take time, that I would like to be able to see that, as a regular standard part of our package.
So meaning the actual
Just,
pay plan and,
no, well, you know, it's what is the current list of jobs
yeah,
and what's their grade
yeah,
and, what's the department?
yeah,
Some of that would help then, give us what the quantitative number is for number of direct reports. As opposed to asking that from from you, but just a table. That has that information, I would find useful.
I know we've got, org charts that we've started to put together in preparation for our conversion to Munis. We have them, I believe, for almost every department. So that's something we could certainly share with the group. And then we have obviously the class and comp plan, which lists out all of the positions in the grade, but it doesn't note department, because obviously some positions like an office administrator is gonna be in multiple departments.
Well, and then we've changed some, I mean, as we go through the year, you know, let titles change.
Yes, yeah,
The evaluation changes. Would that be useful to anybody else to see?
I think the org chart actually sounds helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The way I like to think about things.
Yeah.
More helpful way to see things.
yep, we can definitely
I
put
would say
together.
like town manager and then 2 to 3 levels deep would be super helpful for me, just to see the leadership structure of the town.
Yeah, yeah, we should be able to pull something
Okay.
together with that based on
Thank you
the
for-
ones, we have them all by department, but we should be able to pull them in, to a bigger one.
So we're gonna get ready for a vote on the Department of community development?
No,
No.
Procurement
I can
manager.
make a
Procurement.
motion to approve the procurement manager, job description as presented in the personnel board packet.
Okay,
second,
all in favor? Josh?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Kate?
yes.
Bill? Yes.
All right, and then the last one we have that is new for you is the position of lead swim coach over at BD Swim and Fitness Center. So this is one that would be paid on the miscellaneous comp schedule. Hourly part-time position, up to 20 hours a week, working with, the swim team, program, the Otters program that we have over at BD Center. So this, I believe, is an additional level in between, I think, like the coach, and then some of the other lower level coaching positions over there, but it's my understanding that that program is, you know, continuing to grow. There's definitely a need to have some extra bodies, for coaching, safety, people in the pool, all of that good stuff. And this position, of course, is fully funded through the enterprise fund at BD Center. And it's up to the 20 hours a week.
This looks like an advertisement, a job posting as opposed to a position description.
Yeah, it's recreation, it does theirs a little differently, but if you scroll halfway down, so they've got the ad that they're gonna run, which is kind of that top part up to that bolded language about us being an EEO employer, but then it starts. The actual description starts there, well, you'll see that it's miscellaneous to salary grade comp schedule. Non-exempt reporting to the aquatics manager. and
Do we know what number of swim coaches are currently already staffing the program?
I don't have that information off the top of my head, but I can get that for you.
I'm well acquainted with the Otter program. And I know that this year they made major changes and they made it much less accessible, much more expensive, and they cut the number of swimmers in half. And so
Okay.
I'm not quite clear on the statement that they're growing, where I feel like this had previously been a much more accessible community access program that I thought was a great benefit to the town. And then they decided that they were gonna perceive themselves as more elite and more than tripled the cost of attendance. And I know, because I sit in the pool deck and watch my kids swim all the time, there are a ton of coaches. So I'm not at all clear as to like what this is about, why they're adding a swim coach. And I certainly, I'm kind of concerned about the direction the program has been going in. I think there's, learn to swim and swimming improvement is like such a valuable asset. And then
Right.
this twist in the program as of this year, eliminated a lot of kids who were benefiting from the program and now can't participate. And so then we're adding resources to bulk up a coaching staff for half the number of kids. Leaves me with a lot of questions that I, would like answers to.
Sure. I will definitely follow up on that for you. I know that there is a desire by the recreation director as well as Jenny, the general manager of the BD Center, to increase things like swim lessons, swim programs. That's something that's definitely, on the list. So I actually didn't realize that Otters have been cut in half. I definitely want to have a conversation with the two of them just to get a better understanding of what's happening. It could be that this is part of what they're trying to do to bring that participation up.
Well, I think the participation dropped when they tripled the price, and a lot of the swimmers went to the row club to swim on their team. So I don't think it's actually the lack of staffing that's having impacts as far as I understand.
Is this a topic that, think is appropriate for us to invite the recreation director to come to the next meeting and talk about the, sort of their strategic view of the
Well, we do
program?
have another recreation topic, I guess, that's tabled to the next meeting with the BD.
Yes.
Yeah.
Holiday calendar. I definitely have questions about this one. It doesn't seem like we're equipped to answer tonight. And again, I'm super supportive of the program and I think it's a great program, but it just seems like the statements that are made in connection with this fly in the face of what I see. And so I'm curious to know more about what that is and what's the intention here.
This in some ways sort of goes back to the beginning of the meeting when, with the comments from a couple of the select board was hoping that the personnel board would have a little bit more involvement in some of the strategic organizational features. So again, that may or may not be relevant here.
I think those are, I don't have any knowledge of what's going on at the fitness centers, swim and fitness center, but I do think the questions you're raising
Yeah.
should be answered before we approve this. It's my personal opinion. I think it's a new position, it's in addition to headcount, you're adding staff, I think there's questions about the nature of that I'm not comfortable with, but I mean, we can take a vote, I guess.
I mean, I don't necessarily disagree. I will point out that this isn't being funded through tax dollars, it's being
Right, yeah.
funded through,
The miscellaneous fund. or-
well, no, through the
Enterprise.
enterprise fund, so the funding that they bring in by providing services, so it's a little different than
Yeah,
headcount when we're talking about town employees. I mean, it is a town employee, just,
yeah, no, I think I guess I have a theory as to where the, enterprise funds come from, given the dramatic increase in the cost of the kids involved in the program, but, I still, I guess I'm curious about what is happening.
Sure.
That's a good program.
So, I mean, what we have at least, I think, is table this until the next meeting. Just what was the expectation on the part of the recreation director, and how would tabling impact?
I don't think it will at this point,
Okay, well then, I mean, let's just, we'll table this until the next, and invite because we already have the other topic.
perfect, yep, I'll make sure that, either Lee and or Jenny, can make the next meeting, I'm sure they're happy to attend.
You know, I think, Kate, you raised a good point about the enterprise fund.
Where'd that come from, or what is that funding? Is that from the state, is it from?
No,
private
It's like they
person?
charge,
it's a revolving
yeah,
fund,
like
so.
they run like a business and
Yeah.
they
Yeah, that's
earn
the
their keep,
easiest way, is
basically,
to
right?
say
Private donors.
it's
No,
money
like,
in, money out.
You
So like
spend
membership
$2,200
fees,
a year for your kid to be on the swim team.
Yep.
You know, 100 kids do that and.
Membership
People sign up
fees.
for a aquatics
Yeah.
class.
So it's just excess.
So
money that
they
say
self-fund.
I see.
They self-fund.
Yeah, it's supposed to be
Yeah.
basically money in, money out. You're supposed to, cost recovery, right? What you charge is supposed to cover what you're spending to provide X program. They do, rentals, like we do, BD's rented out to, I think it's either the Lexington swim team, it's some swim team in another surrounding town that doesn't either have a pool or their pool's been under construction, whatever it is. So like we charge rent and they get kind of like ice time in a rink. They get 2 hours in the lap
Well,
pool.
it's busy.
Exactly, so that's money that comes in, that goes into that fund to then be able to turn around and run programs, et cetera. And of course, they have to pay all of their own bills as well, so they have a water bill they have to pay, they pay their own electricity, like that building is fully paid for from this enterprise fund. They don't get any operating budget money to run the building or the programs.
The only assumption I make is that there's no deficit at the end of each fiscal year, because there's no place to fund a deficit. So somebody's gotta manage
Right.
what comes in and what goes out.
Yes.
And I have no clue, because I'm not even sure I've ever seen anything that the town produces as a report on the finances of the BD Center, but it may simply be.
Yeah, we do a presentation. There's definitely one that goes to FinCom and there's
Okay.
the enterprise and capital books. The same thing with like water sewer, that's an enterprise fund as well. And then there's the recreation revolving account as well. So like they're all paid from that. Like no recreation employees are paid from the operating budget either. They're all, again, cost recovery, the salaries, everything are paid for through the money they take in with programs.
I'm just gonna repeat, I think we'll table this until the next meeting.
Yep.
So we'll go on to the executive assistant to the town manager. Jess?
Yes, so these are just updates that we've made, which Erin, you were gonna speak to these 3 or these 4, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yep. So both the job descriptions for both the executive assistant to the town manager and the executive assistant to the select board. The job descriptions were developed as kind of foundational outlines for bringing in the new hires. And then when we brought these individuals in, we identified some opportunities to refine their roles to better leverage their skills, but also better define them amongst another member of the administrative support staff for the town manager's office. So the adjustments just kind of focus on the role clarity and making sure that they're in alignment with the whole support staff. Not making any changes to the grading, it's just kind of bringing the job description to reflect the current responsibilities.
And these are both filled currently.
Yes. Any questions on either executive assistant?
So both of these previously were grade six.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
They both previously were grade sixes.
Yes.
Yeah, there's no change
No
to any
changes.
grading, it's just some minor updates that we're just basically briefing you on. These actually don't require any sort of vote.
And I can't remember, but is grade six the cutoff from exempt and non-exempt? Or is there actually that delineation between exempt and non-exempt?
There isn't that delineation on the grades anymore, it's sort of, it's, some higher level positions are exempt, some are non-exempt based on the duties and the three categories for, you know, do they have supervisory function, the income, all of that, so there's not like a fine, like everybody below grade 8 is non-exempt, everybody above it's exempt.
Okay, so,
Shall I continue?
please.
Okay, so the next one on the list is the office administrator for the finance department. It is a vacant role currently. And upon reviewing the job description, we identified some areas to expand the role, incorporating some administrative responsibilities with regards to procurement and the town's Amazon business account. Any questions? on that?
What is the town's Amazon account?
It's the business account for the town through Amazon.
So office supplies or
Yes.
what is, or is it more than office?
Is it, what else is it in the Amazon, town's business Amazon account? What does that
Yes.
entail within that system?
Oh, so basically we have an account set up where departments are assigned like a sub account to that account. They can go on and order, you know, supplies, whatever they need, and it's arranged that we get like a tax exempt rate, since we don't have to pay sales tax as a municipal employer, whereas if I go and buy something myself on Amazon, even if I'm using my corporate charge card to do it, I'm gonna get hit with the sales tax that we then shouldn't be paying and getting reimbursed for. And I think they offer some other additional deals and things by nature of being in Amazon. I actually have 2 logins, like I can go in and I can pick like my own login or my town of Concord login. But that requires just basically management when the bill comes in to say, okay, these items were bought by, you know, Aaron and HR, so they charge that account accordingly and do all the work on the general ledger and all of that to make sure the right departments are getting billed for the right supplies and invoices.
Halloween costumes and such.
Sounds like Jeff Bezos is touching all bases.
Awesome. Thank you, Jess. And then the next one on the list is, we had talked about this in the last meeting, was that the structure of director within this title. It didn't feel appropriate, so we are actually changing it to program supervisor of childcare services.
I knew we talked about.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
it was your
pretty
feedback. We
recent.
look back, I'm like, yeah, that probably doesn't make sense,
You're
so.
Yeah.
We did check with both, the assistant rec director as well as the manager of the childcare services program, and that we agreed all made sense, so.
Then you have the last one, is that right?
I think that was the
That was
last
all
one.
4, yeah, cause the first 2 were sort of.
Yeah, they were
together.
very similar.
So we need a motion.
No, we don't.
No.
No, these are
they're
just to,
FYIs.
yeah,
Thank you.
just FYI.
Thank you for the FYI.
Thank you for listening.
Okay, so we're on to item 6. I got a note last night from Mark Howell, and the select board meeting agenda is too crowded in December for the personnel boards to have a opportunity to present the charter and any other information it wants to share. So with Liz not being here, we can essentially wait till next meeting to approve the charge, which is included in the packet.
So Mark said we couldn't be on it all for December, just not on for the December 2nd meeting, which I think was the one that had been batted around.
Well, that's an interesting, so there was one for the second and then one for the,
Presumably there'd
16th?
be one on the 16th. Although I also have a note on my calendar that that's also a capital improvement plan meeting, so I'm guessing that's gonna be a
you
big
know,
one that
I
night.
almost, when I, take me forever to probably find it. I think it was gonna have to be postponed
Okay,
into the new year.
that would make sense, because like I said, if the CIP is on for the 16th,
Yeah, I
that's
think
gonna
it's
be
a-
a big night for that,
Right.
so. And then I doubt we'll meet the third, well, we might meet the 30th, but I doubt.
Mark would have joined us tonight, but he had another group he was,
There was a lot of
Liaison.
meetings tonight,
Yeah.
I think, people were double and
So-
triple booked, so.
Get them all in before the holidays.
all right, well, I think, any other business, to come before the personnel board tonight? See if I've gotten everything. So I would like, I just want to make certain that, are we in agreement that at our next meeting, we would talk about the pros and cons for when the merit component is calculated? Is it on the existing salary or is it on the new fiscal year salary? Again, this was a question that was suggested by actually probably two or three of the select board members to, they were thinking that had this come before the personnel board, and I said no, and they said, well, maybe it might be a good idea to talk about it. So are you okay with talking about it, or would you rather not?
It's fine with me.
Happy to discuss, yeah.
Okay.
If it's an especially busy agenda, we could, I mean, I know it's not coming until July, right? It's the,
Right,
Merit,
but in
right.
theory, things that
Yeah.
employees will be given information, like it starts early.
All right, thank you all for attending. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment
I'll move to adjourn.
at this point.
Second.
All in favor? Kate,
Yes.
Yes.
Joe, Josh?
Yes.
Okay.